Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is part 1 of What If Naruto Had Married a Demon Queen. If you guys enjoy this what if, then comment, like and subscribe. Let's go. Also, the video goal is 10 likes, so let me know that you're interested in the series and you want the next part. Then go ahead and check out the other what ifs in the channel. Before we start, please do support for more awesome content. Don't forget to subscribe and leave. Also share the video with your friends and link in the description. So let's go. Naruto, Queen of the Fallen Throne. The Forest of Fireflies earned its name for a reason. On most nights, thousands of bioluminescent insects danced between ancient pines, their soft green and gold light transforming the woodland into something dreamlike. Travelers spoke of its beauty in hushed tones. Lovers stole kisses beneath its glowing canopy. Tonight, the fireflies were silent. Naruto Uzumaki noticed immediately. He had been running since dusk, his sandals barely touching the mossy earth as he leapt from branch to branch. A routine courier mission to the border outpost, nothing dangerous, just the usual scrolls and supply manifests. Boring enough that he'd almost declined, but Tsunade had given him that look, and well, he wasn't about to argue with the Godime after she'd threatened to reduce his ramen budget. Now, 3 hours from Konoha's gates, he wished he'd argued. Something's wrong, he muttered, slowing his pace. The silence pressed against his ears like water pressure. No birds. No wolves. No wind rustling the leaves. Even Kurama stirred within his seal, a rare tension radiating from the ancient fox. Brat, turn back. What? Why? Do you feel that? Naruto stopped on a thick oak branch and closed his eyes. Extended his senses the way Jiraiya had taught him, not just for chakra, but for the spaces between it. The currents of nature energy that flowed through everything living. What he felt made his blood run cold. The forest was wounded. Something had torn through here recently. Not physically, the trees stood intact, the ground undisturbed, but spiritually. The very life force of the woodland recoiled from a central point somewhere ahead, as if every creature with a soul had fled in terror and never returned. I'm not turning back, Naruto said quietly. If something's out there hurting people, it's not human, boy. It's not even mortal. Even better reason to check it out. Kurama's growl rumbled through their connection, but he didn't argue further. He never did when Naruto set his jaw like that. The boy leapt forward, moving faster now, his senses locked onto the source of the disturbance. He found it in a clearing he didn't recognize, though he'd passed through this forest dozens of times. The crater was fresh. Jagged earth smoldered at its edges, not from fire but from something older, something that left the ground feeling dead. Dark veins spider-webbed outward from the impact point, pulsing faintly like diseased arteries. And at the center, a girl, no older than him, maybe 17. Her body lay crumpled amid shattered stone, long dark red hair spread around her like a bloodstain. Her clothes, if they could be called that, were torn remnants of black and crimson silk, armor fragments scattered nearby that looked more like petrified shadow than metal. But it was her skin that stopped Naruto's heart. Pale as moonlight, marked with crawling symbols that shifted as he watched. They weren't tattoos or scars. They were alive, writhing across her flesh like serpents beneath silk, pulsing with a dim crimson glow. And her horns. 2 elegant black horns curved from her temples, spiraling backward like a dark crown. Broken. One sheared off at the base, the other cracked in. Weeping something that wasn't quite blood. Naruto's hand drifted to his kunai, then stopped. She was barely breathing. Hey! He slid down the crater's edge, rocks skittering beneath his sandals. Hey, can you hear me? No response. Her chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven gasps. The markings on her skin flickered weakly, like dying embers. He knelt beside her, reaching for her shoulder. Her eyes snapped open, crimson, ancient, burning with a fire that had witnessed the birth of stars and the death of gods. Naruto froze. Not from fear, though every instinct screamed at him to run. He'd faced Orochimaru's killing intent. He'd stared down Pain's cold, godless eyes. He'd felt Kurama's rage threaten to consume him whole. This was different. This was the weight of 10,000 years pressing against his soul, demanding he kneel, demanding he obey. But Naruto Uzumaki had never been good at following orders. Hey, he said again, softer this time. You're hurt. Let me help you. Her crimson eyes narrowed, confusion flickering through the pain. Her lips parted, and when she spoke, her voice was a cracked whisper, yet somehow still carried the echo of throne rooms and falling empires. Quote dot dot dot. Human. Kill me, before they find me. Naruto blinked. What? Finish it. Blood trickled from the corner of her mouth. I cannot be taken alive. What follows me will destroy everything you love. Yeah, not happening. Her expression shifted, genuine bewilderment breaking through the ancient weariness. You do not understand. I am a Karith, the Crimson Sovereign, former queen of the underworld. I have drowned nations in blood. I have. You're bleeding out in a hole in the ground, Naruto interrupted. I don't care who you were. Right now, you're someone who needs help. Brat. Kurama's voice was sharp. She's not exaggerating. I can feel what she is, what she's connected to. This isn't some missing nin or cursed spirit. She's primordial. Older than my existence. Older than the Sage of Six Paths. Cool, Naruto said aloud. Then she can explain it to me after I stop her from dying. He reached for her again, ignoring the way the shadows around her seemed to writhe in warning. His fingers found her wrist, cold, so cold, like touching winter itself, and he began feeding her his chakra. The effect was immediate. The dark markings on her skin flared bright, then dimmed. Her breathing steadied. Some color returned to her death-pale cheeks. And Karith, former queen of the underworld, feared by demon kings and primordial horrors alike, stared at this orange-clad fool as if seeing something impossible. You give me your life energy. She whispered. Freely. Without contract or cost. Yeah, that's what you do when someone's dying. But I am your enemy. You haven't done anything to me. I could. Easily. Even wounded, I could. But you haven't, Naruto said simply. So you're not my enemy. You're just someone who needs help. The silence stretched between them, broken only by the distant sound of a single firefly finally finding its courage. Karith laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. Rusted from disuse, cracked at the edges, more wheeze than melody. But beneath the brokenness, something genuine. You are either the bravest human I have ever encountered, she said slowly, or the stupidest. Little bit of both, usually. Naruto grinned, hoisting her arm over his shoulder. She was lighter than she should be, as if her body existed only partially in this world. Can you stand? I can't. Attempt. They rose together, unsteady and awkward. Karith swayed, her horns catching the faint starlight that pierced the canopy. Up close, Naruto could see the damage more clearly, deep gashes across her ribs, a wound in her side that still oozed dark liquid, and her eyes held exhaustion so profound it looked like grief. How did you end up here? He asked, beginning the slow trek toward the crater's edge. My generals, she said flatly. They betrayed me. Feared I was becoming too powerful. Too close to something they could not control. Her grip tightened on his shoulder. They ambushed me during the Ascension War. Drove a blade forged from broken oaths through my heart and cast me into the abyss between worlds. That sounds bad. It was Tuesday. Naruto snorted despite himself. You've got jokes, huh? I have survived 10 millennia. Humor is a survival mechanism. They reached the rim of the crater, and Naruto eased her down against a moss-covered boulder. She slumped gratefully, her eyes half closing. Your village, she murmured. You will take me there. It wasn't a question. Yep. They will sense what I am. They will try to kill me. Probably. And you will protect me. Naruto met her crimson gaze. If you're not a threat to my people. Yeah, I will. She studied him for a long moment, those ancient eyes searching for the lie, the hesitation, the fear. Finding none. What is your name, human? Naruto Uzumaki. Future Hokage of the Hidden Leaf Village. Karith's lips curved, not quite a smile, but something approaching it. Naruto, she repeated, as if tasting the syllables. In my language, that name means, maelstrom. A fitting title for one who disrupts the natural order. I prefer, the number 1 hyperactive knucklehead ninja, but I'll take it. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in centuries, the demon queen of the underworld allowed herself to rest in the presence of another. Naruto, she whispered again, softer now. If you truly take me in, if you truly shelter me from those who hunt me, I will owe you a debt beyond reckoning. Don't worry about it. I must. Among my kind, debts are sacred. Contracts are binding. Her eyes opened, and in their crimson depths, something flickered, something that looked almost like hope. By accepting my presence, you have entered an unspoken covenant. Whether you understand it or not. Yeah, well, Naruto said, hoisting her up again and beginning the long walk toward home. I've never been big on fine print. Behind them, the crater smoked. The forest remained silent. And somewhere in the darkness between worlds, demon generals realized their queen had not died as planned. The hunt was about to begin. Konoha reacted exactly as Naruto expected. Which was to say, poorly. He'd snuck a Karith through the village walls using a route Shikamaru had shown him years ago, a drainage tunnel that emerged behind the abandoned training ground near the old Uchiha district. By the time Dawn painted the Hokage monument in shades of gold and rose, he had her hidden in his apartment, wrapped in his spare blanket, sitting on his floor while he cooked instant ramen on a portable stove. Your dwelling is modest, she observed, looking around at the stacks of empty cup noodles, the single futon, the cracked window he'd never gotten around to fixing. It's home. You live alone. Mostly. My friends visit sometimes. She touched the faded photograph on his shelf, Team 7, younger and angrier and still whole. Her fingers traced the image of Sasuke's scowl, Sakura's forced smile, Kakashi's masked face. You have lost much, she said quietly. I can see it in your eyes. Naruto's jaw tightened. Everyone loses things. Yes. But not everyone continues smiling afterward. He didn't respond, just dumped the ramen into 2 bowls and handed her one. She stared at it as if he'd offered her a live snake. What is this? Food. You eat it. I do not. Require mortal sustenance. Doesn't matter. Eat anyway. It's good. Akarith lifted the bowl with the careful precision of someone handling a potential weapon. She sniffed the broth. Her nose wrinkled. It smells of salt and desperation. That's the secret ingredient. She took a tentative sip. Her crimson eyes widened. This is acceptable. Acceptable. That's top-grade Ichiraku's instant recipe. I'll have you know. A knock at the door cut him off. 3 sharp raps. Military rhythm. Naruto. Sakura's voice, tight with concern. Open up. We need to talk. Akarith's shadows deepened, her markings beginning to pulse with warning light. Naruto held up a hand. Stay, and crossed to the door, opening it just a crack. Sakura stood in the hallway, arms crossed, green eyes flicking past him into the apartment. Behind her, Sai hovered with that blank smile that never reached his eyes, and Yamato, Tenzo, watched with the patient stillness of someone who'd seen too many S-rank secrets to be surprised anymore. You want to explain why sensors picked up demonic chakra radiating from your apartment? Sakura asked quietly. Naruto rubbed the back of his neck. Funny story, actually. There's a demon in your room, Naruto, Sai interrupted cheerfully. A very powerful one. Root would have classified her as an immediate termination threat. She's not a threat. She's not human. No, Naruto agreed, but she's hurt, she's alone, and she needs help. That's enough for me. Sakura's expression softened, just a fraction. She'd known him long enough to recognize that tone. The one that meant he'd already made up his mind and no amount of logic or force would change it. Tsunade-sama wants to see her. Now. Then I'll go with her. Naruto. She's under my protection, Sakura. If anyone tries to hurt her, they go through me first. The silence stretched. Somewhere in the village, a dog barked. Children laughed in the distance, oblivious to the ancient darkness that had taken shelter in their midst. Sakura sighed. You're impossible, you know that. I've been told. She pushed past him into the apartment, stopping short when she saw a Karith, wrapped in orange blankets, holding a bowl of ramen, looking for all the world like a lost princess who'd wandered into a college dorm. Sakura's medical training kicked in before her fear could. She knelt beside the demon queen, examining the wounds with professional detachment. These injuries, they're not healing naturally. Whatever did this used something that's actively preventing regeneration. She looked up at Naruto. How long has she been here? Few hours. And she's still alive. Sakura's eyes narrowed. With wounds this severe, a normal person would have died within minutes. I am not a normal person, Akarith said dryly. Yeah, I got that. Sakura reached for her side, then froze as shadows lashed out, wrapping around her wrist like living chains. Do not touch me, Akarith said, her voice dropping to something cold and ancient. I tolerate the boy because he saved my life. You have earned no such courtesy. Sakura's a medic, Naruto said, stepping between them. She's trying to help. I do not need. Maybe not. But I'm asking you to let her try. Please. That word, Please, seemed to catch Ikaruth off guard. She stared at Naruto for a long moment, then slowly withdrew her shadows. Very well. For you. Sakura shot Naruto a look that said we're talking about this later and began her examination in earnest. Behind her, Sai produced a sketchbook and began drawing something that looked suspiciously like Ikaruth with bunny ears. Yamato stayed by the door, his wood release ready, his eyes never leaving the Demon Queen. The Hokage isn't going to like this, he said quietly. I know, Naruto replied. But she'll listen. She always does. Does she? Ikaruth asked, wincing as Sakura probed a wound. Your leader. She will want me dead or contained. She'll want to understand first. And after understanding, Naruto smiled. That smile, the one that had convinced Tsunade to become Hokage, had brought Nagato back from the brink, had turned enemies into allies more times than anyone could count. After that, he said, we figure it out together. Ikaruth looked at him, really looked, and for the second time since falling into the human world, the Crimson Sovereign felt something she'd thought lost forever. Warmth. The Hokage's office had seen many things. War councils, peace treaties, the weighing of lives on scales that no god should have to balance. But never before had it hosted a demon queen eating ramen from a chipped bowl while a Jinchuriki argued on her behalf like a particularly stubborn defense attorney. Tsunade pinched the bridge of her nose. Let me understand this correctly. Sure thing, Ba-chan. Don't call me that right now. Her eyes flicked to Ikaruth, who sat in the chair across from her desk with the regal bearing of someone used to thrones, not wooden furniture. The demon's wounds had been bandaged, Sakura's work, reluctantly accepted, and her horns had been concealed by some illusionary technique Naruto had never seen before. To anyone without sensory abilities, she looked like a pale, exhausted woman with unusual red eyes. But Tsunade had sensory abilities. And she felt the weight pressing against her soul like an ocean current threatening to drag her under. You found a demon, she continued slowly, bleeding out in a crater. Instead of reporting it, you brought her home, fed her instant ramen, and are now asking me to grant her asylum. That's about the size of it, yeah. Naruto. Shizun's voice was strained. She's not just a demon. She's a queen, the kind of being that makes S-rank missing nin look like academy students. And she was betrayed by her own people and left to die. Naruto crossed his arms. That doesn't sound like someone who's a threat to Konoha. You don't know that. I know she's had 100 chances to hurt me and hasn't taken any of them. Tsunade leaned back in her chair, studying the demon queen with the calculating eyes of someone who'd gambled with death and won more times than most. You, Ikaruth, what do you want? The demon set down her ramen bowl with deliberate care. Initially, to die. Her voice was quiet, stripped of the ancient thunder Naruto had heard in the forest. Now, I am uncertain. You expect me to believe that the Crimson Sovereign, the queen who conquered 7 hells and made demon kings kneel, doesn't have a plan. I expect you to believe that I am exhausted. Ikaruth's crimson gaze met Tsunade's without flinching. I have ruled for 10,000 years. I have crushed rebellions, devoured traitors, and bathed in the blood of those who sought to usurp me. And in all that time, no one, has ever shown me kindness without expecting something in return. She glanced at Naruto. Until now. Tsunade was silent for a long moment. Then she reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a bottle of sake. You're going to be trouble, she said, uncorking it. I can already tell. That is, likely. Can you fight? I am diminished, but not defenseless. Can you follow orders? I have given orders. I have not followed them in millennia. Tsunade took a long drink. Great. Just great. Ba-chan, Naruto started. I'm not done. She set down the sake bottle with a sharp thunk. Here's how this works. You stay in Naruto's apartment. You don't leave without an escort. You don't use your powers except in self-defense. And if you so much as look at one of my citizens wrong, I will personally ensure that the next crater you wake up in is 6 feet deep. Ikaruth inclined her head. Acceptable. And you? Tsunade turned to Naruto, her eyes hard. You're responsible for her. If she steps out of line, it's your head. Fair enough. It's not fair at all, and you know it. But I've learned that trying to stop you from doing something stupid is like trying to stop a hurricane. She waved her hand dismissively. Get out of my office. I need a drink. Naruto grinned. That brilliant, irrepressible grin that had disarmed enemies and melted hearts for years. Thanks, Ba-chan. You won't regret this. I already do. As they left the office, Shizune hurried after them. Naruto, wait. He turned. Yeah. The dark-haired woman hesitated, then pressed a small scroll into his hand. Medical protocols. For her physiology. Sakura-sama and I worked on it overnight. It's not complete, we've never treated a demon before, but it might help. Naruto's expression softened. Thanks, Shizune. Just, be careful. Please. I'm always careful. Shizune's look said she strongly disagreed, but she returned to the Hokage's office without another word. Akurith watched her go, then turned to Naruto. Your people are confusing. How so? They should fear me. Instead, they give me medical scrolls and tolerate my presence because you ask them to. Her brow furrowed. What kind of village is this? Naruto started walking toward the stairs. The best kind. The first 3 days were quiet. Too quiet. Naruto knew the feeling, the tension before a mission, the stillness before a storm. He felt it in the way villagers looked away when he passed, in the way his friends found excuses to visit his apartment, in the way the Anbu patrols seemed to circle his building a little more often than usual. Akurith slept. A lot. When I heal, she explained on the second morning, sprawled across his futon while he made breakfast, my body prioritizes restoration over consciousness. It is inconvenient. You're just lazy. I am regal. Lazy and regal. Got it. She threw a pillow at him. He caught it with a grin. On the third day, Sakura came by to change her bandages. The wounds were healing, slowly, too slowly, but healing. The dark markings on Akurith's skin had dimmed to a faint gray, and some color had returned to her cheeks. You're lucky, Sakura said, peeling away the old gauze. Whatever weapon they used on you, it was designed to kill immortals. If you'd been anyone else, you'd be dead. I am aware. Akurith's voice was softer than usual, almost contemplative. They planned well. My generals knew my weaknesses. They exploited them perfectly. That's what betrayal means, Naruto said from the kitchen. The people closest to you know exactly where to stick the knife. Akurith was quiet for a moment. Then, yes, they do. Sakura finished the bandages and stepped back, her medical chakra fading. You're going to need at least another week before you're mobile. Maybe longer. The damage to your spiritual core is. I know what it is. Akurith sat up, wincing. I can feel every crack. Then you know you shouldn't push yourself. I have been pushing myself since before your ancestors discovered fire, healer. A few more cracks will not kill me. Sakura opened her mouth to argue, then closed it. Some battles weren't worth fighting. She left with a pointed look at Naruto, watch her, and disappeared into the afternoon sun. The quiet returned. It broke on the fourth night. Naruto woke to darkness and the smell of ozone. His eyes snapped open. The apartment was wrong, shadows stretching where they shouldn't, angles bending in ways that made his brain hurt. Kurama roared to alertness inside him, chakra flooding his system. They're here. Who? The hunters. I can feel them, demons, half a dozen at least. They've breached the village barriers. Naruto was on his feet before Kurama finished speaking, kunai in hand. The window showed nothing but normal Konoha streets, peaceful and quiet. But the pressure in the air told a different story. Akurith. No response. He turned. The futon was empty. He found her on the roof. She stood at the edge, her back to him, her hidden horns casting long shadows in the moonlight. She'd changed clothes somehow. The bandages were gone, replaced by a flowing gown of shadow and crimson that seemed to drink the light around it. The first wave, she said without turning. They've come to finish what they started. How many? 6. All elite. All trained to kill things like me. Naruto moved to stand beside her. In the distance, beyond the village walls, he could see flickers of movement, shapes that moved too fast, too wrong, their chakra signatures like open wounds in the world. Can you fight? I can try. That's not what I asked. She finally looked at him. Her crimson eyes were different now, not ancient and weary, but burning with something older than pain. Something that looked like fury. I will not let them harm your village, she said quietly. You gave me shelter. You gave me kindness. I will not repay that with destruction. Then we fight together. Naruto. No arguments. He summoned a shadow clone, then another, then a dozen. They spread across the rooftops, kunai gleaming. You said you owe me a debt, right? Quote. Yes. Then here's how you repay it. We protect this village. Together. And when it's over, you're still going to be alive to owe me ramen money. For a moment, just a moment, something cracked in Ikurit's ancient composure. Something that looked almost like tears. Then her shadows exploded outward, and she was no longer a wounded queen. She was a weapon. The first demon died before it touched the ground. It came over the wall like a spider, too many limbs, too many eyes, its body a nightmare of chitin and malice. Ikurit met it mid-air, her hand closing around its throat with a sound like breaking stone. You served under me, she hissed. In the 3rd Legion. You were at the Siege of Thorns. The demon gurgled, fear, not pain. I remember your name, Carthan. I remember your face when I raised you from filth and made you something more. My queen, you betrayed me. The generals, they said, you were becoming. I was becoming what I needed to become. Her grip tightened. Shadows crawled up her arm, into the demon's body. And you believed them. The demon screamed, a sound that shattered windows across the eastern district. Then it collapsed inward, folding like paper, until nothing remained but ash and a faint crimson light that Ikurit absorbed into her skin. Naruto stared. That was brutal. That was mercy, she replied, already turning toward the next target. A quick death. They did not grant me the same. The second demon came at them from the left, a massive thing of muscle and horns, wielding a blade that dripped with corrupted chakra. Naruto met it with a Rasengan, the spinning sphere of energy colliding with the demon's chest in an explosion of light. The demon stumbled, but didn't fall. Interesting, it rumbled, its voice like grinding stone. The Jinchuriki fights beside our queen. How pathetic. Call me pathetic again, Naruto said, already forming another Rasengan, and I'll show you what happens to demons who threaten my village. Bold words for a mortal. Not mortal, Kurama's voice echoed through Naruto's. Transformation, red chakra flickering around him like flame. Not anymore. The demon's eyes widened. Then Naruto moved. The battle lasted 23 minutes. By the end, 4 demons lay dead, 2 by Ikurit's shadows, 1 by Naruto's Rasenshuriken, 1 by a combined assault that left the creature begging for mercy it did not receive. The remaining 2 fled. But not before one of them, a tall figure in black armor, its face hidden behind a mask of bone, paused at the wall's edge and looked back. This isn't over, my queen. I know, Ikurit said quietly. The generals will send more. Stronger. They will not stop until you are dead or bound. Let them come. They will destroy this village to reach you. Ikurit's shadows flared, and for just a moment, the demon queen looked almost sad. Then I will destroy them first. The demon laughed, a hollow, hopeless sound, and vanished into the night. Naruto sat on the edge of the roof, his body aching, his chakra depleted. Around them, Konoha stirred awake, Anbu converging on the scene, civilians peering from windows, the village's defenses scrambling to respond. Ikurit stood beside him, her gown of shadows fading, her body trembling with exhaustion. Your friends will have questions, she said. They always do. Will you tell them the truth? Naruto looked at her, really looked. At the ancient weariness in her eyes, at the blood on her hands, demon blood, but blood nonetheless, at the way her shoulders shook from wounds that should have killed her days ago. The truth, he said slowly, is that you fought to protect this village. You could have run, could have let them chase you somewhere else. But you didn't. I owe you a debt. Maybe. He stood, offering her his hand. Or maybe you're just not as heartless as you pretend to be. Ikurit stared at his outstretched palm. For 10,000 years, she had taken hands, in conquest, in domination, in the crushing grip of absolute power. No one had ever offered her anything. Not like this. Not with open fingers and an open heart. She took his hand. Your optimism, she said quietly, is going to get us both killed. Probably, Naruto agreed, pulling her to her feet. But we'll go down fighting. And that's not the worst way to go. Below them, Konoha began to heal. And somewhere in the darkness between worlds, demon generals sharpened their blades and prepared for war. The council convened at dawn. Not the usual council, not the civilian advisors or the department heads or the various functionaries who turned every meeting into an exercise in bureaucratic torture. This was the war council. The one that only gathered when the village faced an existential threat. Naruto had only been invited twice before. He sat at the far end of the table, Akurith beside him, while Tsunade presided over a gathering of Konoha's deadliest, Danzo Shimura reluctantly included, his one eye cold and calculating the remaining clan heads, Kakashi Hatake his single visible eye fixed on the Demon Queen with an intensity that made Naruto uncomfortable and a dozen other shinobi whose names were classified above S rank. The attack last night, Tsunade began, killed 3 Anbu and injured 17 civilians. The demons responsible were eliminated, 4 confirmed kills, 2 escaped. Escaped, Danzo repeated, his voice like paper rustling. Convenient. Nothing about this is convenient, Danzo. Perhaps not, but I find it curious that the Demon Queen, who claims to be wounded and diminished, managed to kill 2 elite hunters without breaking a sweat. His gaze slid to Akurith, almost as if she were testing our defenses. Akurith didn't rise to the bait. I killed them because they were trying to kill me. If that constitutes a test, then I am the worst kind of test subject, one that fights back. You expect us to believe you're on our side. I expect you to believe nothing. I am not here to win your trust. I am here because Naruto asked me to be. She glanced at the blonde beside her. His judgment, at least, I respect. Danzo's eye narrowed. The boy's judgment has always been suspect. Hey, he's not wrong, Kakashi interrupted quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. Naruto's judgment has gotten him into trouble more times than I can count. But it's also saved this village more times than anyone can count. He pulled down his mask just enough to reveal a faint smile. I've learned not to bet against him. Sentiment, Danzo sneered. The enemy will not be moved by sentiment. No, Tsunade agreed. But they might be moved by overwhelming force. She turned to Akurith. You know your generals. Their tactics. Their weaknesses. Can you help us prepare? Akurith was silent for a long moment. Then, yes, but it will cost you. Name your price. 3 things. First, Naruto remains my protector. I will not accept anyone else. Done. Second, when this is over, I want passage through your lands. I will not stay in Konoha forever, but I will not be hunted when I leave. Tsunade exchanged a glance with the clan heads. Nods, mostly reluctant. Acceptable. Third, Akurith's crimson eyes swept the room. When I tell you what's coming, you will want to run. You will want to hide. You will want to make deals with powers you do not understand. Do not. The only way to survive what approaches is to stand and fight. The room was very quiet. How bad? Kakashi asked. Akurith's shadows flickered, not in threat, but in something that looked almost like fear. The generals who betrayed me command armies that make your great ninja wars look like children squabbling over toys. They have demons who can level mountains, sorcerers who can unravel reality, and weapons forged in the death of stars. She paused. And they are coming here. All of them. Because they know I am wounded, and they know I have found shelter among mortals. Why? Shikamaru's voice came from the doorway. He'd slipped in during the conversation, his shadow already stretching across the floor. Why did they care so much about killing you? You're already fallen, already stripped of power. What's the threat? Akurith met his eyes. Because if I heal, she said softly, I will become something they cannot control. Something they cannot kill. Something that will make the throne of hell tremble. And what is that? A demon god. The words hung in the air like a curse. Tsunade's face was pale. You're saying you could become a god. I was always becoming one. My generals simply sped up the timeline. Akurith's hands clenched. The power I was developing, it was not meant for this world. Not for any world. It was an evolution. A transformation into something beyond demon, beyond primordial, beyond anything that has walked the cosmos. And you want to complete this transformation. I want to survive. The transformation is simply the path. Kakashi spoke again, his voice soft. If you become a god, what happens to the rest of us? Akurith looked at Naruto. I do not know, she admitted. I have never been connected to mortals before. The process may destroy everything around me. Or it may not. The texts are unclear. Unclear, Danzo repeated. She admits she might destroy the village, and we're still having this conversation. We're having this conversation, Tsunade said sharply, because we don't have a choice. The demons are coming whether we shelter their queen or not. At least this way, we have a weapon. A weapon that might kill us. All weapons might kill us all. That's the nature of weapons. She stood, signaling the end of the discussion. We prepare for war. Shikamaru, you're in charge of defensive strategy. Kakashi, coordinate with the Anbu. Naruto. Yeah, keep her alive. Naruto saluted. You got it. They walked home in silence. The village was awake now, the streets crowded with shinobi repairing damage, civilians gossiping in hushed tones, children being hurried inside by anxious parents. Everyone looked at Akurith, some with fear, some with curiosity, some with outright hatred. She didn't react to any of it. You're quiet, Naruto said as they climbed the stairs to his apartment. I am thinking about the future. She paused at his door, her hand on the frame. If I become a demon god, Naruto, I will not be the same person I am now. I will be larger, stranger, less human. You're not human now. No, but I am me. The me that has eaten your terrible ramen and slept on your uncomfortable futon and watched you argue with your friends about nothing important. Her voice cracked, just slightly. I do not want to lose that. Naruto opened the door and gestured her inside. Then don't. It is not that simple. It never is. He closed the door behind them, shutting out the world. But here's the thing about becoming something new, you get to choose what you become. Not the power. Not the transformation. You. Akurith stared at him. You speak, she said slowly, as if you understand. I've had a demon inside me my whole life. A demon who wanted to destroy everything I loved. Who tried to convince me that hate was the only truth. Naruto touched his stomach, where the seal lay hidden. But Kurama isn't that demon anymore. Because I refused to let him be. I chose to see him as something more. Brat, Kurama muttered inside him, but there was no heat in it. The same applies to you, Naruto continued. You're not just a demon queen. You're not just a potential god. You're a Akurith, the one who eats ramen and throws pillows and stood on a rooftop to protect people who would have killed her a week ago. He smiled. That's who you are. That's who you get to be. Everything else is just noise. Akurith's eyes glistened. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Crimson Sovereign wept. That night, she sat beside him as he slept. Not because she was watching over him, though she was. Not because she was plotting or planning or scheming, though a part of her always would be. She sat beside him because she didn't know where else to go. If I reclaim my throne, she whispered to the darkness, I will take you with me, Naruto. She leaned closer, her lips almost touching his ear. Not as a servant. A pause. As my equal. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, indifferent to the promises made in the dark. But somewhere in the depths of Naruto's subconscious, Kurama heard. And the ancient fox smiled. 3 weeks passed. The village healed. Walls were rebuilt. Wounded shinobi returned to active duty. The demons did not return, not yet, but everyone felt them coming. The pressure in the air. The way shadows seemed longer than they should be. The nightmares that plagued the civilian population, dreams of burning eyes and falling stars. Akurith healed slowly. Too slowly. Sakura's medical reports grew more frustrated with each passing day. Her body is repairing itself, she explained during one of Naruto's visits to the hospital, but her spiritual core is still fractured. It's like trying to heal a broken bone that keeps re-breaking itself. What does she need? Time. Maybe years. Maybe decades. Sakura closed the file with a sigh. She's a queen, Naruto. A primordial being. Human medicine only. Goes so far. Naruto nodded slowly, already thinking. He found Akurith on the roof of his apartment building, watching the sunset paint the Hokage monument in shades of orange and red. She'd taken to spending her evenings there, watching the village, learning its rhythms, memorizing the faces of the people who had accepted her presence. You're brooding, he said, sitting down beside her. I am contemplating. Same thing. She didn't argue. Sakura spoke with you. Yeah. About my condition. Yeah. The prognosis is not good. Naruto pulled out 2 cups of instant ramen, the good kind, with the extra seasoning packet. Then we find another way. Akurith accepted the cup, her crimson eyes distant. There is another way. You know there is. The contract. Yes. They ate in silence for a while, watching the village lights flicker to life one by one. Somewhere below, a mother called her children inside. A dog barked. Life continued, indifferent to the ancient power sitting on a rooftop, eating noodles. Tell me about it, Naruto said finally. The contract. What it means. What it costs. Akurith set down her cup. Among my kind, contracts are sacred. They bind souls together, not in servitude, but in mutual obligation. A demon lord might contract with a mortal to gain a foothold in the human world. A mortal might contract with a demon to gain power beyond their natural limits. And what would our contract do? It would tie your life force to mine. Your chakra would become something more. Shadow touched. Blood aspected. You would gain abilities that no human has possessed since the age of myths. She paused. And I would gain access to your vitality. Your healing factor. The demon inside you. Kurama. Yes. His power is immense. More than enough to mend my fractured core. Naruto leaned back on his hands, staring at the stars. Sounds like a good deal. It is not. There are costs. Her voice dropped. You would become something other than human. Not demon, not entirely, but changed. Your soul would carry my mark for eternity. Even in death, you would not be free of me. In you, I would be bound to you as well. Your pain would be my pain. Your death would be catastrophic. I would likely not survive it. Sounds fair. Naruto. She turned to face him fully, her crimson eyes burning. You do not understand what you are offering. A contract with a demon queen is not like a summoning contract. It is not like the bond you share with Kurama. This is absolute, unbreakable. It will follow you across lifetimes. So, her composure cracked. So you would be giving up your freedom, your future, your chance at a normal life with a normal family and normal children who do not have shadows in their blood. Naruto laughed, not mockingly, but warmly, the way he always did when someone said something absurd. Akurith, I'm a Jinchuriki. I've got a nine-tailed fox sealed in my gut. My best friend tried to kill me multiple times. My master died saving the village. My father was the fourth Hokage, and I didn't even know his name until I was 16. He shrugged. There's no such thing as normal for me. There never has been. That is not the point. That's exactly the point. He reached over and took her hand, cold, always so cold, but warming slowly under his touch. You're asking if I'm willing to sacrifice something I never had in the first place. A normal life. Please. I'd rather have an extraordinary one. With you. Akurith stared at their joined hands. You are a fool, she whispered. World's biggest. Ask anyone. The greatest fool in 10,000 years. I'll take that as a compliment. She laughed, a real laugh, broken and rusty but genuine, and when she looked at him again, something had shifted in her ancient eyes. Something that looked almost like surrender. If we do this, she said quietly, there is no going back. I know. Your friends will not understand. They never do. The village may turn against you. Wouldn't be the first time. She was silent for a long moment. Then she reached up and touched his cheek, hesitant, as if afraid he would flinch away. Naruto Uzumaki, she said, her voice formal now, resonant with ancient power. Do you willingly enter into covenant with me? Do you offer your life force, your chakra, your very soul as bond flesh to mine? Naruto met her gaze without flinching. I do. Do you understand that this contract is eternal? That not even death will sever what we create? I understand. Then speak the words. Her hand moved from his cheek to his chest, resting over his heart. Speak them, and become mine as I become yours. Naruto took a breath. I, Naruto Uzumaki, promise to stand beside you. Not as a servant, not as a weapon, but as your equal, your partner, he hesitated, searching for the right word. Your king, if you'll have me. Akurith's breath caught. My king, she repeated, as if tasting the words for the first time. Yes, I will have you. Her shadows exploded outward, not in attack, but in embrace. They wrapped around Naruto like living silk, cold and warm at the same time, pressing against his skin, his chakra, his soul. He felt Kurama roar in surprise, then settle into something like approval. Well, brat, the fox muttered. You've done it now. The shadows sank into him. And the world changed. Naruto gasped as power flooded through him, not like Kurama's chakra, which was fire and fury and ancient rage. This was different. This was shadow and silence and the cold light of dying stars. It filled his veins like liquid midnight, rewriting something fundamental in his very being. His vision shifted. He could see everything. The chakra networks of everyone in the village. The spirits that haunted the forest. The threads of fate connecting living things across continents. And beneath it all, the darkness. The beautiful, endless darkness that existed between moments, between worlds, between heartbeats. Akurith was there, in that darkness. A beacon of crimson light in an ocean of shadow. Can you see me? Her voice echoed in his mind. Yeah, then the bond is complete. He opened his eyes. His apartment looked the same, futon in the corner, ramen cups on the counter, cracked window letting in the night breeze. But everything felt different, sharper, more real. He looked at his hands. Shadow chakra flickered across his palms, not the red of Kurama's power, but something darker. Something that drank the light around it. What am I now? He whispered. Akurith stood before him, her horns no longer hidden, her crimson eyes blazing with renewed vitality. The wounds on her body had closed completely. The dark markings on her skin pulsed with steady light. You are still Naruto, she said softly. But you are also, more. My consort. My equal. The first human in history to bond with a demon queen. Sounds like a lot of paperwork. She smiled, a real smile, the first he'd seen from her. The Hokage will certainly think so. Naruto laughed, and the shadows around him laughed with him, and somewhere in the depths of his soul, Kurama sighed. I am too old for this. The next morning, Naruto woke to find Akurith gone. For a moment, just a moment, panic seized him. Had the bond broken? Had she been taken? Had the generals returned while he slept? Then he felt her. A warmth in his chest, a shadow at the edge of his perception. She was close. The roof again. Always the roof. He found her sitting cross-legged on the tiles, an ancient book open in her lap. The book was wrong, its pages seemed to shift as he watched, text crawling across parchment like living things, illustrations that moved when he wasn't looking directly at them. What's that? He asked, sitting beside her. Akurith didn't look up. The Codex of Infinite Ascension. One of the few texts that describes the process of becoming a demon god. Where did you get it? I have always had it. It is bound to my essence, part of my soul, really. I could no more lose it than I could lose my horns. She turned a page, her brow furrowed. But the text is incomplete. Damaged during my fall. Naruto leaned over to look. The writing was ancient, older than any language he'd ever seen. But somehow, through the bond, he could understand it. The words seemed to translate themselves in his mind, flowing from meaningless symbols to crystal clarity. To become a demon god, he read aloud, one must first embrace the threefold path, the shattering, wherein the aspirant breaks their own soul into pieces, the forging, wherein those pieces are remade in the fires of absolute will, and the rebirth, wherein the new soul ascends beyond demon, beyond primordial, into the realm of divinity. He looked up. Shatter your soul. That sounds painful. It is. Most who attempt it die in the first stage. Their souls simply unravel. Like threads pulled from a tapestry. Akurith's voice was matter of fact, but her hands trembled slightly. My generals attacked me during the shattering. They knew that if they struck while my defenses were down, while I was most vulnerable, they could kill me permanently. But they didn't. No. They wounded me, cast me out, left me to die slowly while they consolidated power in the underworld. She closed the book, her crimson eyes distant. They thought I would perish within a week. Instead, I found you. And now the shattering is incomplete. My soul is broken, yes, but not remade. I am stuck between stages. Unable to move forward, unable to return to what I was. Naruto was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, how do you complete it? The forging requires catalysts. Specific conditions that cannot be replicated artificially. According to the text, I must face the thing I fear most. I must lose the thing I love most. And I must sacrifice the thing I value most. She laughed bitterly. Simple, no. Sounds like a bad prophecy. All prophecies are bad. That is their nature. Naruto took the book from her lap, flipping through its shifting pages. The text seemed to respond to his touch, new passages appearing, old ones fading. He stopped at a section titled, The Mortal Catalyst. Akurith, he said slowly. What does this mean? She looked at the page, and her face went pale. The demon god's ascension may be catalyzed by a mortal bond made of sufficient spiritual potency. The bond mate serves as an anchor, preventing soul shatter during the forging. However, the bond mate risks permanent dissolution if the ascension fails. That's not happening, Naruto said immediately. Naruto. No. You're not risking your life on some ancient text's guesswork. The text is never wrong. The text can be wrong. Texts are written by people, and people make mistakes. He closed the book firmly. We find another way. There is no other way. Then we wait. We train. We get stronger. And when you're ready, when we're both ready, we face this together. Akurith stared at him, her crimson eyes searching. You would risk dissolution for me. I would risk a lot more than that. Why? Because that's what partners do. He took her hand, warm now, the bond steadily healing her. You're not alone anymore, Akurith. You don't have to carry this by yourself. She looked down at their joined hands. I am not accustomed to sharing burdens. Get accustomed. A laugh escaped her, soft, almost helpless. You are impossible. You've mentioned that. I will mention it many more times. Looking forward to it. They sat together on the roof as the sun rose, the ancient text forgotten between them. Somewhere below, Konoha began its daily routine, shinobi training, merchants hawking wares, children running through the streets. And in the shadows between worlds, demon generals sharpened their blades and planned their final assault. But that was later. For now, there was only this, a Jinchuriki and a demon queen, watching the sunrise, holding hands, and pretending that the future wasn't hurtling toward them like a blade. That evening, Naruto gathered his team. Not his official team, Kakashi was away on a mission, and Sakura was busy at the hospital. But his real team, the people who had stood by him through everything. Shikamaru leaned against the wall of Naruto's apartment, arms crossed. You called. I came. This better be important, I was in the middle of shogi. It's important, Naruto said. Sai sat on the windowsill, sketching something in his ever-present notebook. Is this about the demon queen? I've drawn her 17 times. She's very symmetrical. Thanks, Sai. And yes, it's about her. Hinata stood near the door, her Byakugan active, scanning for eavesdroppers. The village is uneasy. People are talking. The council is divided. I know. Naruto took a breath. I made a contract with her. A soul bond. The room went very quiet. Shikamaru's eyes widened, the most emotion he'd shown in years. You did what? A soul bond. It's like a summoning contract, but deeper. She gets access to my chakra. I get access to her shadows. And we're sort of connected now. Permanently. How permanent? Even death won't break it. Shikamaru pinched the bridge of his nose. Troublesome. So troublesome. Hinata stepped forward, her pale eyes searching Naruto's face. Are you okay? Does it hurt? I'm fine. Better than fine, actually. He held up his hand, and shadow chakra flickered across his palm, dark and cold and utterly foreign. I have new abilities. New power. And Icarith is healing faster than ever. But at what cost? Sai asked, tilting his head. There's always a cost. Naruto hesitated. The bond means I'm tied to her. If she dies, I die. If I die, she dies. We're linked. Shikamaru swore under his breath. You've made yourself a human sacrifice. If the demons kill her, then I go down with her. That's not heroic, Naruto. That's suicidal. Maybe. Naruto's voice was quiet but firm. But it's also the only way to save her. And saving people who need saving. That's what I do. The room fell silent again. Hinata was the first to speak. I trust you. Shikamaru looked at her sharply. Hinata. I trust him, she repeated. Naruto has never steered us wrong. Not really. Even when it seemed like he was making a mistake, he found a way to make it right. She smiled softly. This will be no different. Shikamaru sighed. You're all impossible. Every single one of you. Does that mean you're in? I'm in. But I'm going to complain about it the entire time. That's all I ask. That night, Naruto found Icarith in his room, reading the codex by candlelight. You have good friends, she said without looking up. The best. They will be in danger because of me. They've been in danger before. They'll be in danger again. That's the life. Icarith closed the book. I have been reading about the mortal catalyst. There may be alternatives. Ways to complete the forging without risking your dissolution. Tell me. The text mentions a place, the Well of Forgotten Souls. A nexus point where the barriers between worlds are thin. If I could reach it, I might be able to complete the shattering and the forging simultaneously. The well's energies would act as a buffer, protecting you from the worst of the backlash. Sounds dangerous. Extremely. Where is it? Akurith hesitated. Beneath the village hidden in the rain. Amegakure. Naruto's blood ran cold. Amegakure. Pain's village. The place where Jiraiya had died. That's not going to be easy. No, but it may be necessary. She looked at him, her crimson eyes soft. I will not ask you to come with me. This is my burden. Stop. Naruto held up a hand. We've been over this. Your burdens are my burdens now. That's what the contract means. A contract you entered without fully understanding. I understood enough. He sat beside her on the futon, close enough that their shoulders touched. We go to Amegakure together. We find this well, and we figure out how to make you a god without killing either of us. And if we can't, then we find another way. You keep saying that, because it keeps being true. Akurith leaned her head against his shoulder, just slightly, just for a moment. The gesture was so human, so vulnerable, that it made Naruto's heart ache. You are going to get us both killed, she murmured. Probably. And you're not afraid. Nope. Liar. Okay, maybe a little. He put his arm around her, pulling her closer. But being afraid never stopped me from doing the right thing. They sat like that for a long time, two broken souls holding each other together in the dark. Outside, the stars wheeled overhead, indifferent and eternal. And somewhere in the depths of the underworld, demon generals finally set their plans in motion. The rain never stopped in Amegakure. It fell in sheets, in curtains, in endless silver whispers that turned the village into a world of blurred edges and drowning light. Naruto had been here twice before, once as Pain's enemy, once as Nagato's mourner, and both times, the rain had felt like tears. Now, standing at the village's eastern gate with Akurith beside him, the rain felt like something else. A warning. The well is beneath the central tower, Akurith said, her voice barely audible over the downpour. The same tower where your enemy once ruled. Nagato's tower. Yeah, I remember. Naruto pulled his hood lower. Is it guarded? Not by anything human. They moved through the flooded streets like ghosts. Amegakure had changed since Pain's fall. New leadership, new alliances, a fragile peace brokered by the allied shinobi forces. But some things remained. The endless rain, the skeletal towers, the feeling of being watched by eyes that had seen too much. Naruto felt Kurama stir. Demons, the fox growled. Close. At least a dozen. Where? Everywhere. They're woven into the rain itself, sensors, probably. They know we're here. Naruto touched Akurith's arm. We've been made. I know. Her crimson eyes scanned the rooftops. They're not attacking. They're observing. Waiting for something. Perhaps. Or someone. The answer came from the shadows ahead. A figure stepped out of the rain, tall, cloaked in black, a straw hat pulled low over its face. Naruto's hand went to his kunai, but something about the figure felt familiar. Not the person. The presence. Naruto Uzumaki, the figure said, and the voice was wrong, layered, echoing, as if multiple beings spoke through a single throat. The Jinchuriki of the Nine Tails. We have watched your progress with great interest. Who are you? The figure laughed, a sound like breaking glass. We are many things. To the world, we are ghosts. To the 5 great nations, we are criminals. But to the demons who now hunt your queen. The figure raised its head, and beneath the straw hat, Naruto saw a swirling orange mask. Not Toba's mask. Something older. Something that seemed to drink the light. We are the Akatsuki. The hideout was beneath the central tower, hidden behind waterfalls and seals that Naruto couldn't begin to decipher. The figure, who called itself Enma, though Naruto suspected that was a lie, led them through winding corridors lit by paper lanterns that burned with black flame. The Akatsuki fell, Naruto said, his voice tight. Pain is dead. Obito is dead. The organization is gone. The organization you knew is gone, Enma agreed. But the idea remains. A gathering of those who seek power beyond the limits of mortal understanding. We have simply rebranded. They emerged into a vast chamber, round, like the one where Pain had stored his paths, but different. The walls were covered in tapestries depicting demonic battles, primordial wars, the fall of kingdoms that had never existed in the human world. And at the center of the chamber, seated around a stone table, were figures that made Naruto's blood run cold. He recognized them. Not by face, most wore masks or hoods, but by presence. By the weight of their chakra, the darkness of their souls, the ancient malice that radiated from them like heat from a fire. Demons. Not low-level hunters. Not soldiers or scouts. Generals. Akurith's generals. The ones who had betrayed her. My queen, said the figure at the head of the table. A woman, beautiful, with skin like polished obsidian and hair like molten gold. Her eyes were the color of spoiled wine, and her smile was the most terrifying thing Naruto had ever seen. How wonderful of you to finally arrive. We've been waiting. Lilith, Akurith breathed, and the name was poison on her tongue. You dare show your face to me. I dare many things, sister. Betrayal. Treason. Regicide. Lilith's smile widened. Why should I stop now? The other generals laughed, low, rumbling sounds that shook the chamber's foundations. Naruto counted 5 of them, plus Lilith. 6 of the most powerful demons in existence, seated around a table as if for a business meeting. You ambushed me, Akurith said, her shadows flaring. Stabbed me in the back. Cast me into the abyss. And now you sit here, in the human world, acting as if nothing happened. Acting as if nothing happened would be foolish. Lilith rose from her seat, her gown trailing across the stone floor like spilled blood. We know exactly what happened, sister. You attempted the ascension. You nearly became a demon god. And she spread her arms, we saved the underworld from a tyrant who would have destroyed everything. I was not a tyrant. You were becoming one. The power was changing you. You would have burned our world to ash and called it purification. That is not, isn't it? Lilith stepped closer, and the other generals rose with her, circling like wolves. The texts are clear, Akurith. A demon god cannot exist alongside other intelligent life. The mere presence of such a being warps reality, crushes souls, extinguishes hope. You would have killed us all. Not through malice, but through simple existence. Akurith's hands clenched. You don't know that. We know enough. Lilith stopped a few feet away, her wine-dark eyes flicking to Naruto. And this must be the mortal. The one who bonded with you. The fool who agreed to serve as your anchor. I'm not an anchor, Naruto said, stepping forward. I'm her partner. Partner. Lilith laughed. How quaint. The Jinchuriki plays at politics with creatures older than his entire species. Tell me, mortal, do you even understand what you've agreed to? The bond she forged with you is not a partnership. It's a leash. She owns your soul now. Every thought, every feeling, every dream, all of it belongs to her. That's not true, isn't it? Lilith's smile turned sly. Ask her if she can read your mind. Feel your emotions. Taste your fear. Naruto looked at Akurith. She wouldn't meet his eyes. Akurith, I can sense you, she admitted quietly. The bond allows it. But I do not, I would never. See, Lilith purred. She hides things from you already. Secrets. Lies. The foundation of every great relationship. Shut up. Naruto's voice was hard. I don't know what game you're playing, but I'm not interested. We came here for the Well of Forgotten Souls. We're going to find it. And then we're leaving. The well. Lilith's expression flickered, surprise, perhaps, or respect. You know about the well. The Codex mentioned it. It can complete the ascension. The Codex lies. Or rather, it tells truths that are no longer true. Lilith returned to her seat, gesturing for the other generals to do the same. The well was sealed centuries ago. By us. By the very demons you now face. We closed it because it was too dangerous, a nexus point where any sufficiently powerful being could force their ascension, regardless of readiness. You sealed it to prevent rivals from challenging you. We sealed it to prevent chaos. Lilith's voice was cold. But you don't believe me. You never did. So let me make you an offer, sister. Akurith's eyes narrowed. I want nothing from you. Not even your life. Not even the lives of the mortals you've grown so fond of. Lilith's gaze swept to Naruto. We have an army, Akurith. Thousands of demons, trained for war, waiting just beyond the veil. If we choose to invade the human world, if we choose to burn this village, and every village like it, there is nothing you could do to stop us. You would start a war with the 5 great nations. We would end one, quickly, efficiently. The mortals have no defense against what we command. Naruto's blood boiled. You're wrong. Lilith raised an eyebrow. Am I? Yeah, you're underestimating us. Every enemy does. And every enemy pays for it. He stepped forward, shadows flickering around his hands. You want a war? Fine. But don't expect to win. The chamber went very quiet. Then Lilith laughed, a genuine laugh, warm and almost pleasant. I like him, she said to Akarith. He has fire. More than your last consort, certainly. My last consort tried to kill me. They all do, eventually. It's the nature of power. Lilith leaned forward, her wine-dark eyes intent. Here is my offer. The well is beneath this tower, sealed behind 7 gates. We will open those gates for you. We will allow you to attempt the ascension. And if you succeed, if you truly become a demon god, we will kneel. We will serve. We will never betray you again. And if you fail, you die. Your soul scatters across the void. Your mortal companion dies with you. And the underworld continues as it always has, divided, warring, glorious. Lilith's smile returned. A fair gamble, don't you think? Akarith was silent for a long moment. Why? She asked finally. Why would you help me after trying to kill me? Because we were wrong. Lilith's voice softened, losing some of its edge. We thought you were becoming a monster. But watching you, these past weeks, watching you bond with a mortal, watching you protect his village, watching you care, we realized something. And what's that? That you are not the tyrant we feared. You are something else. Something new. She glanced at Naruto. Something perhaps even better than a demon god. A queen with a mortal heart, one of the other generals muttered. Unprecedented. Unprecedented and unpredictable. Lilith stood. So, do we have a deal, sister? The well for a chance at ascension. Life or death, success or failure, all decided by your own will. Akarith looked at Naruto. He shrugged. It's your call. But whatever you decide, I'm with you. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, they burned with ancient fire. Open the gates. The descent took 3 hours. 7 gates, each sealed with magic older than humanity, each requiring a different key. Lilith led the way, her golden hair gleaming in the torchlight, while the other generals followed in silence. Akarith walked beside Naruto, her hand never leaving his. Sister, Lilith said as they approached the first gate, a massive construction of black iron, carved with scenes of demonic war. Do you remember the first time we came here? You were barely 1,000 years old. Still wet behind the horns. I remember you pushed me into the well to see if I would drown. You didn't. I was impressed. Lilith pressed her palm against the gate, and it groaned open. You've always been stronger than me. Than all of us. That's why we feared you. And now I'm not sure what I feel. She glanced back, her wine-dark eyes unreadable. Respect, perhaps. Envy. A strange sort of hope. Hope for what? That you'll prove us wrong. That a demon god can exist without destroying everything. That maybe, she paused, maybe we don't have to be alone at the top. The second gate opened. Then the third, fourth, fifth. By the 6th gate, the air had changed, thicker, heavier, charged with energy that made Naruto's teeth ache. The walls of the passage were no longer stone but something else, crystal, maybe, or frozen light, pulsing with slow, rhythmic beats like a heart. The well is close, Akarith murmured. I can feel it. Feel what? Power. Possibility. The edge of something vast and terrible. She gripped his hand tighter. Naruto, if this goes wrong. It won't. You don't know that. I know you. He stopped walking, turning to face her. I know you're stronger than you think. Braver than you believe. And I know that whatever happens down there, we face it together. Her eyes glistened. You are too good for me. Probably. But you're stuck with me now. She laughed, that broken, beautiful laugh, and kissed him. Not on the cheek, not hesitantly, fully, deeply, with all the passion of 10,000 years of loneliness finally finding an answer. When they broke apart, Lilith was watching with an expression that might have been envy. Charming, she said dryly. Now can we please finish this? The 7th gate won't open itself. The 7th gate was different. No iron, no stone, no crystal, just a curtain of darkness, absolute and complete, stretching from floor to ceiling. It seemed to drink the torchlight, absorb the sound, erase the very concept of existence. The veil of night, Akarith whispered. The boundary between worlds. Beyond it lies the well. And beyond the well, ascension, or death. She turned to Lilith. You said you would open the gates. Open this one. Lilith shook her head. The veil cannot be opened. It can only be parted by someone who has already crossed it once. What does that mean? It means, Lilith said, that only you can enter, sister. You and your mortal. The rest of us must wait here. Akurith stared at the veil. You planned this. We planned for many possibilities. This was merely one of them. Lilith stepped back, joining the other generals. The well will test you. It will offer you everything you've ever wanted, and demand everything you've ever been. If you survive, you emerge as something new. If you don't, she shrugged, we'll tell stories about you. Sad ones, probably. You're not going to try to stop us. Would it matter if we did? Akurith was silent for a moment. Then she turned to Naruto. Are you ready? No. Good. Neither am I. They stepped through the veil together. The space beyond was not a place. It was an absence, a void where light and dark had no meaning, where time moved backward and forward simultaneously, where thoughts became echoes that repeated for eternity. Naruto felt his body dissolving, his mind fragmenting, his soul scattering like dust in wind. Then Akurith's hand tightened around his. Stay with me, her voice echoed in his mind. Don't let go. I won't. They fell. Or rose. Or simply, existed. And then, without transition, they were standing before the well. It was beautiful. A pool of liquid starlight, shimmering with colors that had no names, reflecting faces that weren't theirs. The well of forgotten souls, where broken spirits came to rest, where lost dreams gathered like moths to flame, where the boundaries between death and life grew thin as paper. This is it, Akurith whispered. The Codex said you have to face your greatest fear, Naruto said. Lose what you love most. Sacrifice what you value most. Yes. Do you know what those are? She looked at him, really looked, with eyes that had seen empires rise and fall, stars ignite and die, worlds born and destroyed. My greatest fear, she said softly, is being alone. For 10,000 years, I ruled without equal, without partner, without anyone who saw me as anything other than a queen. And then I met you. Me. You looked at me and saw a person. Not a weapon. Not a threat. Not a fallen tyrant waiting to rise again. She touched his cheek. You saw Akurith. Just Akurith. So your greatest fear is losing you. That's why the bond chose you. That's why the contract worked. Her voice cracked. Because somewhere in the depths of my ancient, broken soul, I fell in love with a foolish mortal who makes terrible ramen and never knows when to give up. Naruto's heart stopped. Akurith, I know. It's selfish. It's unfair. You didn't ask for this. But the bond doesn't lie, and neither will I. She stepped closer, her forehead touching his. I love you, Naruto Uzumaki. And that terrifies me more than any demon, any god, any power in any universe. He pulled her into his arms. Good, he said against her hair. Because I love you too. And I'm terrified of losing you. They stood like that for a long moment, two broken souls holding each other together at the edge of eternity. Then the well began to glow. The well of forgotten souls did not wait for speeches. It simply took. One moment, Naruto was holding Akurith in his arms, her tears warm against his neck. The next, the pool of liquid starlight erupted upward, not as water, but as something older. Something that existed before the first star ignited, before the first god drew breath, before time itself learned to move in one direction. Tendrils of silver-white energy wrapped around Akurith's body, lifting her from his grasp. No. Naruto lunged forward, but the energy repelled him, throwing him back against crystalline ground that hadn't existed a moment ago. The bondmate cannot enter the well, a voice echoed, not Lilith's, not any demon's. Something vast. Something that spoke in the plural, as if 1,000 voices had learned to share a single throat. Only the aspirant may pass. You must wait, little mortal. Like hell I will. Your death would serve no purpose. The bond would shatter. The aspirant would follow you into oblivion. The voice paused. Is that what you wish? Naruto stopped struggling. No. Then wait. Watch. Hope. The tendrils lifted Akurith higher, suspending her above the well's surface. Her body was already changing, the dark markings on her skin flaring bright, her horns lengthening, her crimson eyes becoming something more than eyes. They were becoming windows, portals, gateways to a power that made Kurama feel like a candle before the sun. Brat, the fox whispered, and for the first time, Naruto heard fear in his voice. She's entering the shattering, the final stage. What does that mean? It means her soul is breaking apart. Every memory, every emotion, Every scar she's accumulated over 10,000 years, all of it is being stripped away, examined, reforged. Kurama's presence trembled. It is the most painful thing a being can experience. Most do not survive. She will. How do you know? Because I'm here. Above the well, Ikaruth screamed. The shattering lasted hours. Or minutes. Or days. Time had no meaning in this place. It flowed like water, twisted like smoke, folded back on itself in ways that made Naruto's head hurt. He watched as Ikaruth's body fragmented and reformed, each cycle stripping away another layer of her ancient self. He watched her relive her worst memories. The day she was born, not from a womb, but from the primordial chaos that existed before reality. She had emerged screaming, covered in the blood of stars, already aware that she was alone. The day she killed her first rival, another primordial, older and stronger, who had looked at her and seen prey. She had won, but the victory tasted like ash. She had realized, in that moment, that power was not a gift. It was a cage. The day she took the throne, surrounded by demons who bowed and scraped and plotted her death. She had smiled and accepted their fealty, knowing that every smile hid a knife, every bow masked a betrayal. The day she met Naruto, broken and bleeding in a crater, expecting to die, expecting nothing from the human who found her. And he had looked at her not with fear, not with hatred, but with concern. As if she mattered. As if she was worth saving. That memory played on a loop, brighter than the others, warmer. The well seemed to pause over it, examining it from every angle, testing its weight. This is the catalyst, the thousand-voiced being observed. This is what changed her. She changed herself, Naruto said. I just helped. Helping is rare among your kind. Rarer still among hers. The being seemed to consider something. Perhaps that is why the bond succeeded. Perhaps that is why she has a chance where others have failed. Can you help her? We cannot. We can only witness. The shattering, the forging, the rebirth, these must be accomplished alone. No outside force can intervene without destroying the aspirant. Naruto's fists clenched. Then what am I supposed to do? Wait. Watch. Hope. The voice softened, if 1,000 voices could soften. And be ready to catch her when she falls. The forging began without warning. The silver-white tendrils retracted, and Ikaruth plummeted toward the well's surface, but stopped inches above it, suspended by nothing visible. Her body had stabilized. The dark markings were gone, replaced by patterns of gold and crimson that shifted like living flames. But her eyes were closed. And her soul was on fire. Naruto could see it, the bond allowed him to perceive what should have been invisible. Ikaruth's soul, normally a vast constellation of ancient light, had been compressed into a single point of incandescent fury. It burned and burned and burned, consuming everything she had been to create something she could become. This is the crucible, Kurama murmured. The moment of transformation. If she survives this, she will never be the same. She'll survive. You keep saying that, because it keeps being true. The burning intensified. Naruto felt it through the bond, agony beyond description, beyond endurance, beyond sanity. It was like being unmade and remade 1,000 times per second, each iteration more painful than the last. He dropped to his knees, gasping, tears streaming down his face. But he didn't look away. He couldn't. Because somewhere in the heart of that fire, Ikaruth was fighting. Not against the well was merely a tool. She was fighting against herself. Against the fear that had driven her for 10,000 years. Against the loneliness that had festered in her soul like a wound. Against the belief that she was meant to be alone, that power and love could not coexist, that the throne demanded solitude as its price. I don't accept that, her voice echoed through the bond, faint, distant, but clear. I don't accept that I have to be alone. I don't accept that power means isolation. I don't accept any of it. Then change it, Naruto sent back. You're the queen. You make the rules. Even the rules of reality. Especially those. He felt her laugh, painfully, brokenly, but genuinely. You really are a fool. World's biggest. I love you. I know. The fire exploded outward. When it faded, Ikaruth stood at the center of the well. But she was different. Her horns had grown, not monstrously, but elegantly, curving back from her temples like a crown of obsidian. Her hair had deepened from dark red to something closer to liquid garnet, flowing past her waist in waves that seemed to move on their own. Her skin still pale, but now traced with patterns of gold that pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. And her eyes. Her eyes were no longer crimson. They had become something else, a color that didn't exist in the natural world, a shade between violet and silver and the light of dying stars. When she looked at Naruto, he felt the weight of eternity pressing against his soul. But beneath that weight, he felt something else. Love. Did it work? He asked, his voice hoarse. Akarith stepped out of the well, walking on its surface as if it were solid ground, and crossed to him in 3 strides. She knelt before him, taking his face in her hands. I am not yet a demon god, she said softly. But I am no longer a demon queen. I am something in between. Something new. Something good. I hope so. She pressed her forehead against his. I am still me, Naruto. Still the woman who eats your terrible ramen and sleeps on your uncomfortable futon. But I am also more. I can feel everything now. Every soul in this world. Every hope. Every fear. Every dream. That sounds overwhelming. It is. But I have an anchor. She kissed him, softly, gently, with none of the desperate passion from before. You. So what happens now? Now, she said, rising and offering him her hand, we return to the generals. And we find out if they intend to keep their word. The veil parted for her. Not reluctantly, not conditionally, but eagerly, as if welcoming a long-lost daughter. Akarith walked through without hesitation, Naruto's hand in hers, and emerged into the torchlit chamber where Lilith and the other generals waited. They fell to their knees. All of them, even Lilith, proud and beautiful and terrible, bent her head and pressed her forehead to the cold stone floor. My queen, she said, and her voice trembled. You have done what no being has accomplished in 10 millennia. You have entered the well and emerged unchanged in spirit, but transformed in power. Rise, Akarith said quietly. All of you. They rose. Lilith's wine-dark eyes were wet. We betrayed you. We tried to kill you. We left you to die in a world that should have destroyed you. And still you. Stand before us, offering mercy. I am not offering mercy. Akarith's voice was calm, but steel ran beneath it. I am offering a choice. Serve me willingly, not out of fear, not out of obligation, but because you believe in what I am trying to become, or leave. Return to the underworld. Rule your own dominions. I will not pursue you. And if we choose neither, then you will face the consequences of your betrayal. Her new eyes, violet silver starfire, fixed on Lilith. But I hope it does not come to that. You were my sister once. My closest advisor. The only demon I trusted. Lilith's composure cracked. I was wrong. Yes. I was afraid. I know. I thought if you became a god, you would forget us. Forget me. That you would rise so high that we would become insects beneath your notice. Akarith was silent for a moment. Then, I might have. Once. Before I met him, she glanced at Naruto. But he taught me that power does not require isolation. That strength can coexist with love. That a queen, or a god, is only as great as the bonds she maintains. Lilith looked at Naruto, really looked, as if seeing him for the first time. You changed her. I just showed up. She did the changing. Humble, too. Lilith's lips twitched. I begin to understand why she chose you. Took you long enough. The other generals stirred, uncertain, uneasy, but no longer hostile. One by one, they knelt again. We will serve, said the largest, a bull-like demon with iron horns and eyes like forge fires. Not out of fear, but because you have become something worth following. The Crimson Sovereign is dead, another added, a slender, serpentine creature with scales of emerald and gold. Long live the Violet Queen. Akarith raised her hand. No, not Violet Queen, not Crimson Sovereign, not any title that separates me from those I protect. She looked around the chamber, at the generals who had betrayed her, at the walls that had witnessed her near destruction, at the man who had saved her. I am simply Akarith. And if you wish to follow me, you will follow not because of what I am, but because of what we can become. Together. Silence. Then Lilith laughed, a real laugh, warm and surprised. You really have changed, she said. Welcome back, sister. I've missed you. They emerged from the tower as dawn broke over Omegakure. The rain had stopped. For the first time in decades, the sun touched the village's flooded streets, turning the water to gold. Citizens emerged from their homes, blinking at the unfamiliar light, whispering to each other in confusion and wonder. Naruto stood at the tower's entrance, Ikaruth beside him, the generals behind them like a dark honor guard. The rain stopped, he said. I asked it too. Ikaruth's voice was soft. Nagato's sorrow kept this place drowning for years. But his sorrow is not this village's destiny. It's time for something new. You can control the weather now. I can control many things now. She smiled, that rare, precious smile that she reserved only for him. But I cannot control you. That, I suspect, will never change. Damn right. They walked into the sunlight together, two broken souls who had somehow become whole. Behind them, the well of forgotten souls settled back into its ancient slumber, waiting for the next aspirant who would dare to change. And somewhere in the distance, the demon generals began the long work of rebuilding their queen's kingdom, not in the underworld, but in the human world. Among mortals. Among those who had shown them that power without love was just another form of death. 3 months later, Konoha had a new landmark. Not a tower. Not a monument. Not anything that could be seen with mortal eyes. A throne. It sat at the edge of the village, where the forest of fireflies met the cultivated fields, a structure of shadow and light, solid and ethereal, visible only to those who knew how to look. The Violet Throne, the demons called it. A symbol of the new order Ikaruth was building. But it wasn't a throne of conquest. It was a throne of connection. Explain it to me again, Sakura said, standing at the throne's base with her arms crossed. Slowly. As if I were a child. Naruto grinned. Ikaruth is creating a network. Like the chakra network in a body. She's linking the demon world and the human world through bonds of mutual benefit instead of exploitation. And this benefits Konoha how? Demons can help with construction, defense, healing, their medicine is way ahead of ours. In exchange, we give them shelter. Acceptance. A place where they don't have to hide. Sakura stared at him. You're talking about integrating demons into our society. That's exactly what I'm talking about. That's insane. Probably. Naruto's grin widened. But it's working. He wasn't wrong. In the weeks since Ikaruth's transformation, demons had begun appearing in Konoha, not as invaders but as immigrants. Low-level demons first, the ones who had suffered under the old order, who had been crushed by the generals' wars and the underworld's endless power struggles. They came seeking sanctuary. And Konoha, to everyone's surprise, gave it. Not easily. Not without conflict. There were protests, fears, late-night council meetings where Tsunade argued until her voice gave out. But slowly, painfully, the village began to change. A demon blacksmith opened a forge near the training grounds. His weapons were extraordinary, lighter than steel, sharper than any blade Konoha had produced. Shinobi lined up to commission custom work. A demon healer joined the hospital staff, working alongside Sakura to develop treatments for conditions that had stumped human medicine for generations. Terminal illnesses began to have cures. A demon gardener transformed the village's farms, coaxing crops from soil that had been barren for years. The harvest that autumn was the largest in Konoha's history. And at the center of it all, Ikaruth watched and learned and grew. She held court at the Violet Throne every evening, not to issue decrees or demand tribute, but to listen. Demons came with their problems. Humans came with theirs. And Ikaruth, the former Crimson Sovereign, the nearly demon god, the ancient being who had once ruled through fear, Ikaruth listened. And she helped. Naruto, she said one evening, as the sun set behind the Hokage monument. Come here. He climbed the steps to the throne, not to kneel, never to kneel, and sat beside her on the wide violet seat. It was big enough for two. What's up? I have been thinking about the future. Scary. She smiled. Not as scary as it used to be. She took his hand, her fingers interlacing with his. I will not live forever, Naruto. Not even as a nearly demon god. The ascension bought me time, centuries, perhaps millennia, but eventually, even I must face the end. That's a long way off. It is. But I have been considering, what comes after. What do you mean? She turned to face him, her violet silver eyes serious. I mean succession. Who will rule when I am gone? Who will maintain the bonds between demons and humans? That's not. It is. And I believe I have found the answer. She reached up and touched his cheek. Our children, Naruto. Yours and mine. They will inherit the throne. They will carry both demon blood and human blood, the best of both worlds. Naruto's heart stopped. Children. Not immediately. Perhaps not for many years. But eventually. Her voice softened. If you want them. If you want us. He stared at her, at this ancient, powerful, terrifyingly beautiful being who had somehow fallen in love with a loudmouth ninja from a hidden village. Children, he repeated. Children. With you. With me. He laughed, a loud, joyous sound that echoed across the training grounds, startling birds from their perches. Yeah, he said, pulling her into his arms. Yeah, I want that. I want all of it. She kissed him, and the violet throne glowed with warm light, and somewhere in the depths of the underworld, the old order crumbled to dust. The final battle came on the first anniversary of Ikaruth's ascension. Not with demons, the generals had been true to their word, integrating into the human world with surprising enthusiasm. Not with humans, the 5 great nations had grudgingly accepted the new reality, recognizing that demon allies were better than demon enemies. The final battle was with something older. Something that had existed before the well, before the primordial demons, before the first spark of life in an empty universe. The void. It came without warning, a tear in reality itself, hovering above the violet throne like a wound in the sky. From that tear poured creatures that had no names, no forms, no existence that mortal minds could comprehend. They were simply absence. The absence of light, the absence of hope, the absence of everything that made life worth living. The void does not approve, Kurama said, his voice grim. It sees Ikaruth's transformation as an abomination, a being that exists between categories, that defies classification. It wants to unmake her. Then we stop it. Naruto. No arguments. We protect what we love. That's the rule. He found Ikaruth at the throne's peak, her shadows flaring, her violet silver eyes fixed on the tear in reality. The generals surrounded her, Lilith, the bull demon, the serpent, a dozen others, their weapons drawn, their faces set. The void, Ikaruth said as Naruto approached. I wondered when it would come. You knew about this. I suspected. The well warned me that my transformation would draw attention from beings that do not like change. She didn't look away from the tear. They will try to kill me. They will try to destroy everything I've built. Let them try. She finally looked at him, and smiled. That rare, precious smile. Together. The battle lasted 3 days. Naruto fought alongside Ikaruth, their powers intertwined through the bond, his shadow chakra blending with her crimson gold flames, his Rasengan tearing through void creatures that had never known pain, her ancient magic shielding the village from attacks that would have turned it to glass. The generals fought beside them, redeemed traitors proving their loyalty with blood and steel. Lilith took a wound that would have killed a lesser demon, but kept fighting, kept laughing, kept spitting defiance at the void. Kurama emerged fully, his 9 tails lashing, his roars shaking the foundations of reality. The void creatures recoiled from his ancient fury, not because they feared him, but because he represented something they could not comprehend: loyalty. Love. A demon who had chosen to protect rather than destroy. And the people of Konoha, the ordinary men and women who had once feared demons, they fought too. With kunai and jutsu and sheer stubborn refusal to let their home fall. On the 3rd day, Ikaruth ascended. Not to demon god, that transformation remained incomplete, perhaps permanently. But to something else, something the void had never encountered. A being who was not quite demon, not quite human, not quite god. A being who was simply present. She stepped into the tear in reality, her shadows wrapping around the void itself, and she spoke. You do not belong here. The void writhed. This world is not yours to unmake. These people are not yours to consume. And I, her voice rose, shaking the stars, I am not yours to judge. The void screamed, and then it was gone. The tear sealed. The creatures dissolved. The sky returned to blue, dotted with clouds, indifferent and beautiful. Ikaruth fell. Naruto caught her. She woke 3 days later in his apartment, wrapped in his blankets, a bowl of instant ramen cooling on the bedside table. You're an idiot, he said softly, sitting beside her. I saved the world. You almost died. I saved the world and almost died. Both can be true. He laughed, that broken, relieved laugh that meant he'd been terrified and was only now admitting it. Don't do that again. I make no promises. I know. He leaned down and kissed her forehead. That's why I love you. She smiled, that rare, precious smile, and pulled him down beside her. Stay, she whispered. Always. Epilogue. 1 year later. The violet throne had grown. Not in size, it remained the same elegant structure of shadow and light, but in significance. Demons from across the underworld made pilgrimages to Konoha, seeking audience with the queen who had defied the void. Humans came too, delegations from the 5 great nations, seeking alliance, seeking trade, seeking understanding. Akurith held court every evening, Naruto beside her, their hands intertwined. And sometimes, when the court was empty and the sun had set and the village slept, they sat together on the throne and watched the stars. Do you ever regret it? Naruto asked one night. Leaving the underworld? Giving up your throne? Akurith considered the question. No, she said finally. The underworld was a cage, though I did not know it. Power without connection is just emptiness. I would rather be here, with you, eating terrible ramen and sleeping on an uncomfortable futon, than rule 1,000 hells alone. Even when the ramen is really terrible. Even then. She kissed his cheek. Especially then. Naruto grinned. Good. Because I made dinner. What is it? Ramen. Of course. She sighed, but she was smiling. Of course it is. They walked back to the apartment together, 2 broken souls who had somehow become whole. And the violet throne glowed softly behind them, a beacon of hope in a world that was still learning how to change. Naruto, Queen of the Fallen Throne. Final chapter, The Wedding of the Violet Queen. 7 months after the battle against the Void. 7 months of peace. 7 months of rebuilding. 7 months of watching Akurith's belly swell with the first child born of demon and human blood in 10,000 years. And now, on the first day of spring, when the fireflies returned to the forest that had brought them together, a wedding. The forest of fireflies had never been more beautiful. Thousands of bioluminescent insects danced between the ancient pines, their soft green and gold light transforming the woodland into something dreamlike. But tonight, they were not alone. Floating lanterns drifted upward from hidden spring mechanisms, each one painted with symbols of both worlds. The leaf of Konoha, the violet crown of Akurith's new reign, the spiral of Naruto's destiny. A path had been carved through the trees, lined with flowers that bloomed in impossible colors, demon roses that glowed with inner fire, mortal lilies that smelled of honey and rain, and something new, a hybrid flower that Akurith herself had cultivated, its petals shifting between crimson and violet, between shadow and light. At the end of the path stood an archway of living wood, woven by Yamato's wood release and strengthened by demon magic. Vines curled around its frame, bearing blossoms that opened and closed in rhythm with the fireflies' glow. And beneath that archway, waiting, stood Naruto Uzumaki. He had never been so nervous. Not during the Chunin exams. Not during the war against pain. Not during the battle against the void itself. None of it compared to standing here, in a formal kimono that Sakura had practically wrestled him into, waiting for the woman who had changed everything. You're fidgeting, Kurama observed from within the seal. I'm not fidgeting. You're bouncing on your heels like a child who needs the bathroom. Shut up. The great hero of Konoha, brought low by a piece of paper and a pretty dress. Naruto would have responded, but the music started, soft at first, then swelling, a melody that blended human instruments with demonic harmonics. The sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere, wrapping around the gathered guests like a warm embrace. The crowd turned. And Naruto forgot how to breathe. Akurith walked down the aisle alone. She had refused escorts, no father to give her away, no brother to stand beside her. She had entered the world alone, she said, and she would enter this new chapter the same way. But as she moved through the sea of fireflies and lantern light, she did not look alone. She looked like a queen. Her gown was the color of midnight, not black, but the deep purple black of the space between stars, shot through with threads of silver that caught the light with every step. The fabric flowed around her like liquid shadow, parting just enough to reveal the swell of her belly, 7 months pregnant, round and prominent, carrying the heir to 2 worlds. Her horns had been polished to a mirror shine, curving back from her temples like a crown of obsidian. Her hair fell in waves past her waist, interwoven with flowers, the same hybrid blossoms that lined the path, crimson shifting to violet. And her eyes, those impossible violet-silver eyes, were fixed on Naruto with an intensity that made his heart ache. She was beautiful. She was terrifying. She was his. Naruto, she said when she reached the archway, her voice carrying across the silent crowd. You're crying. He touched his cheek, surprised to find it wet. I'm not crying. There's something in my eye. A firefly. Probably. She smiled, that rare, precious smile that she reserved only for him, and took his hands. Her palms were warm, warmer than they had been when they first met, when her skin had been cold as winter. The bond had changed her. Love had changed her. Are you ready? She asked. No. Good. Neither am I. The ceremony was short. Neither of them wanted long speeches or complicated rituals. They had faced death together. They had faced gods and voids and the end of worlds. A simple exchange of vows seemed almost laughably easy in comparison. But it mattered. Because for all their power, for all their ancient strength and demonic heritage and world-shaking abilities, they were still just two people who had found each other in the darkness. I, Naruto Uzumaki, he said, his voice steady despite the tears, promise to stand beside you. Not as a servant, not as a weapon, but as your equal, your partner, your husband. I, Akarith, formerly of the underworld, currently of Konoha, she said, her voice trembling just slightly, promise to stand beside you. Not as a queen, not as a ruler, but as your wife, your confidant, your home. Someone in the crowd sniffled. It might have been Sakura. It might have been Tsunade. It might have been Lilith, who stood in the back with the other generals, pretending she wasn't wiping her eyes. By the power vested in me, Kakashi said, because of course Kakashi was officiating, his mask pulled down just enough to reveal a genuine smile. By the leaf and by the underworld, by the fireflies and the stars, I pronounce you bonded. You may kiss the. Naruto didn't let him finish. He pulled Akarith into his arms, carefully, mindful of her belly, and kissed her like the world was ending. Like it was the first time. Like it was the last time. Like it was the only thing that had ever mattered. The fireflies went wild. They swarmed around the couple, their light intensifying until the entire forest glowed like dawn. The lanterns rose higher, faster, spinning in joyful spirals. The demon roses burst into full bloom, releasing petals that drifted through the air like snow. And in the depths of the seal, Kurama smiled. About time, the old fox muttered. About damn time. The reception lasted until dawn. There was food, mountains of it, prepared by chefs from both worlds. Demon delicacies that looked terrifying but tasted like heaven. Human dishes that Akarith had grown to love, including an entire table devoted to variations of ramen. There was music, demonic harmonies that made the soul vibrate, human songs that made the heart ache, and somewhere in between, a drunken duet between Naruto and Lilith that would be remembered for generations. There was dancing, Naruto spinning Akarith across the grass, one hand on her waist, the other cradling the curve of her belly. She laughed, actually laughed, loud and free and utterly unlike the cold queen he had found in a crater. I love you, she said, as the sun began to paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. I love you too, he replied. Even when you steal the blankets. I do not steal the blankets. You absolutely do. You wrap yourself in them like a demon cocoon. I am regal. Regal in blanket stealing. She laughed again, and the sound was the most beautiful thing Naruto had ever heard. The gifts came from everywhere. The 5 great nations sent delegations with offerings, silk from the land of lightning, spices from the land of wind, gemstones from the land of earth. Tsunade gave them a house, a real house, with a garden and a nursery and a kitchen that Naruto could fill with ramen ingredients. The demons gave stranger gifts, a blade that could cut through lies, a mirror that showed the viewer's truest self, a seed that would grow into a tree connecting both worlds. Lilith gave Akarith a locket containing a portrait of them as children, before the wars, before the betrayals, before everything fell apart. I kept it, Lilith said quietly, as Akarith stared at the tiny paintings. All these years. I kept it because I hoped. I hoped one day you would forgive me. Akarith closed the locket and pressed it to her heart. I already have, she said. I forgave you the moment I stepped out of the well. Then why? Because you needed to forgive yourself first. Akarith embraced her sister, her enemy, her betrayer, her friend. Welcome home, Lilith. Lilith cried. She would deny it later, of course. Would claim it was pollen from the demon roses, or a stray firefly in her eye, or simply the lateness of the hour. But everyone saw, and everyone understood. As the reception wound down and the guests departed, Naruto led Akarith to their new home. It was small by demon standards, nothing like the palaces of the underworld. But it had a garden, as Tsunade had promised, and a porch that faced east, perfect for watching the sunrise. And inside, there was a nursery. They stood in the doorway together, looking at the crib, the painted walls featuring both the leaf symbol and the violet crown, the mobile of tiny fireflies that actually glowed. "She's going to be so spoiled," Naruto said. I have a feeling." Akurith placed her hand on her belly. "I have a feeling, too. A daughter. With your eyes. And your horns. Perhaps. Or perhaps she will be entirely human. Or entirely demon. Or something we cannot yet imagine." She leaned against him, her head resting on his shoulder. "Whatever she is, she will be loved." "Yeah," Naruto agreed, wrapping his arms around her. "Yeah, she will. That night, after the village slept and the fireflies settled and the lanterns finally drifted out of sight, Naruto lay beside his wife in their new bed. Her belly rose between them, round and warm, and he placed his palm against it, feeling the faint flutter of new life within. "Are you scared?" he asked. "Terrified," Akurith admitted. "I have faced armies. I have faced gods. I have faced the void itself. But I have never faced this. A child. A family. A future that does not revolve around power and conquest." "Me neither," Naruto said. "But we'll figure it out. Together." "Together," she repeated, and the word was a vow, a promise, a prayer. Outside, the wind rustled the leaves of the demon tree Lilith had planted, the one that would grow to connect both worlds. Its branches reached toward the stars, toward the future, toward everything that was possible. And in a small house at the edge of Konoha, a Jinchuriki and a demon queen held each other close, waiting for the dawn. 3 months later. The birth was hard. Even with Sakura's medical expertise, even with demon healers standing by, even with Kurama's chakra bolstering Akurith's strength, it was hard. There was blood. There was screaming. There was a moment when Akurith's heart stopped, just for a second, just long enough for Naruto to feel the bond flicker like a candle in the wind. But she came back. She always came back. And then there was crying, not from the mother, but from the child. A girl, as they had suspected. Small and wrinkled and perfect, with a tuft of dark red hair and eyes that shifted between violet and blue. "She's beautiful," Naruto whispered, holding his daughter for the first time. Akurith, exhausted and radiant, reached out to touch the baby's cheek. "What shall we name her?" Naruto thought for a moment. Thought about fireflies and craters and ancient queens who had fallen from the sky. Thought about bonds and contracts and love that transcended worlds. "Natsumi," he said. "It means, summer beauty, but also, born of the storm." "Seems fitting." Akurith smiled, that rare, precious smile. "Natsumi," she repeated. "Welcome to the world, little one. You have no idea how long we've waited for you." The baby cooed, and somewhere in the depths of the underworld, the old throne crumbled to dust. Something new had been born. The end. Epilogue. 10 years later. Natsumi Uzumaki Akurith stood at the edge of the violet throne, her small hands gripping the armrest, her mismatched eyes, one blue, one violet, scanning the crowd below. She was 10 years old. She was already taller than most children her age, with her mother's dark red hair and her father's whisker marks, though hers were fainter, more suggestion than scar. Small horns curved from her temples, barely visible beneath her bangs, and when she smiled, she revealed tiny fangs. She was the heir to 2 worlds. And she was bored. "Mother," she said, turning to Akurith, who sat on the throne beside her. "Do I really have to attend the council meeting? It's so dull." Akurith raised an eyebrow. "You are the princess of the demon-human alliance. Dull or not, you must learn. But father doesn't attend. Your father is currently fighting a giant snake in the forest of death. He sends his regrets." Natsumi's eyes lit up. "A giant snake. Can I go help?" "No. Please. No." "But mother." "Natsumi." Akurith's voice was firm, but her eyes were soft. "The council meeting will teach you patience. Politics. The art of negotiation. These are skills you will need when you inherit the throne. What if I don't want the throne?" Akurith was silent for a moment. Then she reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind her daughter's ear. "Then you will not take it," she said quietly. "Your father and I did not build this world to trap you in it. We built it to give you choices." Natsumi considered this. Then she grinned, Naruto's grin, bright and irrepressible. Can I at least make faces at Lilith during the boring parts? Quote. I did not hear that. Can I? I said I did not hear that. But Icarith was smiling. Now go. The council awaits. Natsumi scampered down the throne steps, her small shadow flickering with power she was only beginning to understand. At the bottom, she paused and looked back. Mother. Yes. I'm glad you fell out of the sky. Icarith's breath caught. So am I, little one, she whispered. So am I. The council meeting was dull, as expected. But Natsumi endured it, making faces at Lilith only when her mother wasn't looking, and dreaming of giant snakes and firefly forests and the father who had taught her that love was the greatest power of all. Outside, the sun set over Konoha, painting the sky in shades of gold and violet. And somewhere in the forest of fireflies, a crater slowly filled with wildflowers, blooming in colors that had never existed before. The end. Author's note. Hello, dear listeners. Before I post this story on fanfiction.net, I want to ask you to listen to this note carefully. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for listening, for staying, for giving this story a chance. I want to share the journey of how this fanfiction came to be, because the final version you just heard is actually the third rewrite. The original idea, first version. Icarith was supposed to be a demon fox. A rival to Kurama, the Nine Tails. The story was about two fox demons fighting for dominance, with Naruto caught in the middle. But the conflict with Kurama felt wrong, redundant. I was writing the same character twice. So I scrapped it. The first rewrite, second version. I changed Icarith into a demon queen. A primordial being, older than Kurama. Someone who had ruled for 10,000 years and never known kindness until Naruto found her bleeding in a crater. This version had the Well of Forgotten Souls, but back then, I called it something else. The second rewrite, adding character depth. I realized Icarith needed more than power. She needed connection. That rewrite softened her, gave her the arc from lonely tyrant to loving wife and mother. The story started to feel right. The third rewrite, where we are now. This is the version you just listened to. But even within this rewrite, there were changes. The Well of Forgotten Souls, that mystical place where Icarith completed her ascension, was originally called the Wall of Sins. And before that, in an even earlier draft, it was called the Awakening. Why did I change it? Because, Wall of Sins, felt too judgmental. Too focused on punishment. And, the Awakening, felt too vague. Every transformation could be called an awakening. I wanted a name that captured both the danger and the possibility of that place. A well is deep, mysterious, something you descend into. Forgotten Souls spoke to Icarith's loneliness and her fear of being erased. So the Well of Forgotten Souls was born. This is the only fanfiction I've ever finished. I've started 2 fanfictions in total. The other one remains unfinished. Maybe someday. But this one, Queen of the Fallen Throne, is the first story I've seen through 3 rewrites to the very end. The idea is original. The demon fox was the seed, but what grew from it? Icarith, the Well, formerly Wall of Sins, formerly the Awakening, the Violet Throne, Natsumi, that's all mine. I'm proud of it. It's not perfect, but it's mine. To every listener who stayed with me through this journey, thank you for your support. Writing is lonely work. Rewriting is even lonelier. Knowing someone was listening made all the difference. Now, before I post this story on fanfiction.net, I want to listen to it one more time, and I hope you will too. If you enjoyed this story, please share it with a friend who loves Naruto. Leave a review on fanfiction.net. Or just smile at a firefly the next time you see one. As for me, I'll keep writing. Maybe I'll finish that other fanfiction someday. Maybe I'll start something new. But no matter what, I'll always remember the queen who fell from the sky, the ninja who caught her, and the 3 versions of the story that led to this one. Thank you again for listening, and for your support. With gratitude. Author, H. Fiction. Thank you for listening. I do hope you guys enjoy. If you guys enjoyed this original what if you want more videos like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notifications, and also check out the other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.